This project was made possible with the support of Cal Humanities, a nonprofit partner of the National Endowment for the Humanities. Visit www.calhum.org.
But this question would be for my mother, back in the early days. The backstory is that my mother had 7 children. She had 10 children altogether. 7 of us were born and raised, and we're still alive today. No, that's right. We lost one last year, and this year in June. But the thing is that my mother had 7 children, and only 2 of us have the same father. All the other group has all different fathers. So my question to my mother would be, first of all, my oldest brother is half white, and this was back in 1934 that my oldest brother was born. And in 34 in Louisiana, it was very segregated. So not that that's an unusual thing, but it is something that is not quite common for my brain to say, well, here we live in a completely segregated society where people are not allowed to be together at all, and then my mother have a half-white child. So, that would be a question I'm just curious, not out of any other thing except curiosity and my inquisitive mind. And also, my second sister, my first oldest sister, she was married to this gentleman. And what happened to that marriage, why they didn't stay together, what happened for the marriage to break up, and then why we all had his last name. I have an idea on why she had the last name because back in Louisiana in those days, we were all delivered by a midwife. And the midwife knew my mother's last name, so I'm sure that the way it worked, the midwife would deliver the child, and then the doctor would record the birth. So when she went back to him, she would have a list of all these babies. And, this would be maybe all the children that would be born from maybe November until June or whatever amount of time before she saw the doctor. She would have a list of all these babies. She said, probably say, well, Miss Bibbins' baby, so what's his name? His name is Sam. Okay, Samuel Bibbins. And that's the way your birth certificate would be written. So it's a lot more to this. I don't want to take up all the time, but it was just a fact that these things would intrigue my memory. And, of course, she's been gone a long time, and it would just be a question that I want to get some answers.
Why do we live in a world that's so violent where everything eats each other? Right up from the top to the bottom of the food chain, one species or bacteria, whatever, they all eat each other. We all eat each other. I don't understand that. And I always wonder what kind of dimension where we live in this physical world, our 3-dimensional world, if there's like multiple dimensions, and this is just one stage and we got to learn whatever here, and that's just the way it is. But I would like to sit down with God and his son and have a nice little chat and just start, airing out all the questions I have about this world so I can understand, and maybe hopefully elevate my consciousness to another realm. So that, I know it sounds silly saying God, but with God there, you could ask him about all these other people you got questions about too. So you can add them in there. So that's who I'd like to have dinner with.
I would love to have dinner with my maternal grandfather. He's passed away, and lately I've gotten into the genealogy portion of my family, and there's a lot of unanswered questions. Now, he's lived through World War I and World War II, so he would have a lot of answers of what went on during that time, and he was in Europe at the time to watch everything going on. So he would be the one that I would love to get a nice dinner conversation with and ask him questions about our family, because The reason I'm more interested now is because when my mom had dementia, she reverted back to when she was a teenager, and she told stories that we had never heard before. And I can't kind of like, comprehend some of these stories that she told me. So I'm trying to find them in, history books and things like that. But the source would have been my grandfather. He would have been able to verify all of this. So that's the person that I would love to have dinner with.
The person that I would have dinner with is none other than Jesus Christ. I would ask him about the state of the church. I would ask him about things to watch out for in this highly technological advanced society. I would like to ask him about the end times, about the book of Revelation. I would, as a preacher, would like to know, is there a specific message to give to society now in terms of missionary work, in terms of evangelism, in terms of these denominations and the denominations that have the power of these resources, like the Catholic Church. They could do great things in the missionaries and in evangelism. There are concepts like same-sex marriages that I'd like to clear up, thus saith the Lord. And I would like to find out, is society praying enough?
If there was anyone that I could have dinner with, it would be Shakyamuni Buddha, because I don't think there's anyone more effective to bring, for me, to bring about, peace and to bring about lasting peace for me. And once I started thinking about it, and I was thinking about if we were able to go into the past, which is an impossibility, at least with our current knowledge, that maybe I can go into the future. And the future Buddha was prophesized 2,000 years ago, and that would be Buddha Maitreya. And he was prophesized as the Buddha of loving kindness, which is interesting because that was in the time of compassion and wisdom. And he was also portrayed as sitting on a chair in the way in which we sit on chairs in a society that didn't have chairs and people that didn't sit on chairs in the way in which we do. And I think maybe he'd be able to relate to me in even more a one-on-one way than the classic historical Shakyamuni Buddha. So if I could have dinner with anybody, it would be the Buddha Maitreya of loving kindness.
I left the Caribbean to come over here to get you off of heroin. And it's amazing how you did. But it was rough. Real rough. Something that I guess a father and a daughter I did not want to deal with it, only because I know how hard it is to get off of an addiction as strong as that. And I didn't want to leave the Caribbean to come over here to fuck with you. But you are my daughter. You are the only person I really care about. And shit happens. And we went through it. Really went through it really well. So I'm proud of you. That's it.
This project was made possible with the support of Cal Humanities, a nonprofit partner of the National Endowment for the Humanities. Visit www.calhum.org.